Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Marshall. If you're new to the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Go ahead and smack that bell to be notified of future upcoming podcasts. David Dellman is a returning guest to our podcast. He's a magician, a mentalist, an author, a YouTube creator, and so much more. We'll ask him all about the so much more. Please welcome to the podcast, David Dellman. David, welcome back.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Such a pleasure and honor, my friend. I remember being the first subscriber on your YouTube channel, and I felt like there was such a connection. I enjoy watching your videos because you are so laid back. It's like sitting in the living room with you, and both of us sitting with it's just that relaxing, and you are so knowledgeable about what you do. And I really want to congratulate you for 125K subscribers.
Yeah,
You have
that's very nice.
192 videos. I think you're beating me at that. I think that's amazing. Where do you find the
I'm
time
I'm
to do it?
I'm one of those turtle and hare people. I think steady progress is what makes a difference. And when I made the commitment to do it, I promised myself I would post each and every Friday. And that's what I do every single Friday.
You haven't missed one yet?
I haven't missed one yet. Not since I
Fantastic.
started to try to put material out there, develop an audience. Now, I've been on YouTube for a long time. I was posting performance videos to reference back for potential customers that wanted to see what I was doing. I was posting that sort of thing. But the format that I currently have, that started, 2.5 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, maybe longer
Maybe
than
three,
that.
yeah.
But once I started doing that, I promised I was going to do every Friday evening. And when I started, I was going to post something and I didn't know what. I've kind of evolved into magic history, magic reviews, that sort of thing. But when I started, you go back, my first video was a trick called the Die and Sword, which was the first trick I ever purchased from a dealer. I thought that would be fun to start with. And so that was the first thing I did. I also did a coin assembly. I did the McDonald Aces. I did a number of performance pieces, and then I just slowly evolved into discussing magic history. I really love magic history, and it's not that I'm not knowledgeable, it's that I do a lot of research in advance of those presentations. Now, if you notice, I have notes in front of me because I just don't have it memorized. I'm working off of notes. In the early days, I used to hold up a photograph with the notes on the back of the photograph. I stopped doing that because I got concerned about copyright issues with the photographs. So not that it's a problem. It's not necessarily a problem, but I thought, you know what? I don't need to do it. I'm not going to take the chance doing it. There was a video I did on an illusion that Thurston did. And this is a beautiful illusion. It's a circular piece, and the woman is sawed into 3/4, and her head comes up here and her feet come down here in her midsections here. It's a beautiful illusion. And I had a photograph of that, and I found out who owned the photograph. And in almost every case, when I use a photograph, I've tried to get permission to use it. There are a number of photographs that belong to Mike Caveney. I've written to him and asked him, and Mike Caveney is very fast and very generous. But the gentleman that owned this particular photograph, he said he would get back to me, and then he said he was busy, and then it was months before he got back to me and finally released the photograph for my use. And that was kind of the turning point for me. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop using photographs and just work off of notes.
That's fascinating. I had no idea that they had a copyright on photographs. I mean, it's not like you're reproducing it or anything, but
I'm not reproducing it. I'm not publishing it. I'm not selling it. So arguably you could call it fair use. But just to be on the safe side, I've always tried to seek out permission. There was a beautiful, when I did the Adelaide Herman presentation, which was probably a couple of years ago now, Mike Caveney had a beautiful photograph of Adelaide. And I wrote to him, and he wrote back immediately and said, "You have my blessing, go use it." So that was fantastic. And most of the time that's the case. But I've gotten away from that simply because I don't want to get slowed up on a presentation waiting for permission to use a photograph.
So you had moved away from magic for some time, and you started focusing on mentalism. And now I was really, really delighted to hear that you're back at magic. And what brought that on, my friend?
Well, I prefer to call myself a magician still and always. I'll give you the story. It's kind of a long story, but I'll tell you the story here. I wanted to be, like a lot of people in our generation. I grew up loving Mark Wilson. I grew up loving Doug Henning. I grew up loving David Copperfield. And those are the guys that defined magic for me. Not to mention George Gobel, that a lot of people don't know, but he was the local illusionist. And so I wanted to do the big show. And from the time I was 10, 11, 12, I started working toward that goal. By the time I was in my 30s, I had the big show. And I had an assistant, and she was working with me. And I guess it was 1999. That was the year. Maybe it was 1998. She came to me and said, "I'm leaving the show. I'm getting married. I'm having a family. I'm sorry. I love the show, but I just don't have time to do it anymore because I'm getting married and I want a family." So she leaves the show, and I started running ads in newspapers trying to replace her. And I just was never able to find somebody that could step in the way she did. So I started to look for a type of magic that I could do on my own without carrying a lot of equipment. That was mentalism. And then over a period of time doing mentalism, I found that some audiences got confused. I'll tell you two stories real quick. I was doing a question answer act, and I love the question answer act because it's so personal. So I'm doing a question answer act, and after the show, the MC came over and said, "Do you mind if we ask you a few questions?" I said, "No, go ahead." And the MC said, "Well, are you legitimately psychic?" And I said, "Well, whether or not I'm legitimately psychic, I can tell you that I wasn't using any of that here. Okay, none of this is legitimately psychic." Well, the audience was very disappointed, to the point of being vocally disappointed. And I'm thinking, well, you knew it was a magic act, right? I didn't try to present it as anything other than what it was. Then there was a second incident where I was hired to come in and do a show. And I show up to do my show. I'm getting set up, and the guy who hires me comes over and he says, "I've told everyone that you're a legitimate psychic." I said, "Well, you shouldn't have done that because that's not what I'm here to present. That's misrepresenting what I do." And we had words about it. We had an exchange. He was ready to fire me on the spot if I didn't present as legitimate. So from that point on, I don't tell people I'm doing mentalism. I tell them I'm doing magic. It's magic, because I don't want that confusion. Now, some mentalists do. Some mentalists want that ambiguity, and they want that kind of. But to me, I'm very concerned about how I'm representing what I'm doing and how people are perceiving what I'm doing. So I'd much rather say I'm a magician who does mental magic than say I'm a mentalist who's doing mind reading. So you see, that's the difference for me. And since I've started doing that, I've gradually worked my way back into doing conventional magic. So, so that's kind of the long story of magic to mentalism to magic.
Well, I think Eugene Berger probably would have answered that question from the spectator or from the person who hired you as, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
He just
Yeah.
would have left it like that, and he would have giggled with his little joyful jumping around beard, the bouncing beard that you couldn't take your eyes off
I
of.
can hear Eugene saying that. I can hear Richard Osterlin saying that. I can
Yeah,
hear a lot of mentalists saying that.
because I don't know. I mean, in all honesty, you don't really want to tell everybody Santa Claus doesn't exist. Although you do want to be, realistic and practical, and come on, does magic exist? It's sleight of hand. It's illusion. I practiced many years to make it look real. So that should be your answer. But sure, whatever. It's real. Um, so now we've touched bases on your channel, and we'll be probably talking about your channel for the next century. I just think that you offer a wonderful service, and I like your personalization with people, that you do get back to them, and not only that, but you address them by their name, which gives them their recognition that you're answering their question. And I like that you take the time to actually do that for your subscribers. I think that's a beauty. That's the difference between somebody having 25 subscribers and 125K subscribers, because let me tell you, your interaction makes a big difference, because people don't want to just talk to a wall. They want somebody to talk back. That's why YouTube and this kind of format is going to outdo television, because television, it's just losing its flavor, baby. um so let's go ahead and cross into, gosh, Mr. Valentino, the masked magician. You did a subject on this not too long ago, and did he make or break magic? What is your call on this?
I'm not sure that he made or break magic. By the way, a subscriber asked me to do that. So I was responding to a request from a subscriber in doing it. Uh, when I take on a topic, I normally let it marinate for a period of time. I was actually studying Valentino for a few weeks before I actually presented, to try to get a flavor for who he was and what he did and how people reacted to him. And you can see responses across the board, responses that are very negative, responses that are very positive, and everywhere in between. My personal feeling, and I said this on the video, at the time I was presenting an illusion act, and in my act was the subtrunk, the dollhouse, and the zigzag. And he revealed on the night before I was supposed to perform, in each case, he revealed the dollhouse the next day I presented it. He revealed the zigzag the next day I presented it. He revealed the subtrunk the next day I presented. Here's the thing, and I mentioned this on the video. In no case did a single audience member say to me, "Oh, I saw that on Magic Tricks Revealed. I saw the masked magician do that." In no case did somebody say, "I know how you did that." So it never impacted me negatively.
Wow.
On the other hand, the dollhouse that he presented is not the traditional dollhouse. And if you go back and look at a lot of the illusions that he presents, he's not presenting the traditional method. He's come up with some other method entirely. The dollhouse he presented, I just loved. I don't want to get into the mechanics of it, but it was a different method, and I thought it was actually a superior method to the original dollhouse.
One you wish you would have thought of.
Exactly. So I've actually benefited from his work. And so, having benefited from his work, I'm not prepared to say that he shouldn't have done it. However, one of the things I said on the video, I'm a member of the SAM, I'm a member of the IBM. And when you become a part of those organizations, you take an oath.
Yes, you
And
do.
the oath is that you will not reveal secrets. And so if I give my word, first of all, if I give my word, I keep my word. Secondly, I think this is also very important. Those illusions belong to somebody, and it's really important to respect those private those property rights. And so, I mean, I'm an author. I wouldn't like it if somebody took one of my books and put their name on it. It's the same thing. If you take a secret that doesn't belong to you and you reveal it, you basically put your name on someone else's work. It's the same thing. So I don't condone what he did, but at the same time, I was not injured by it, and I actually enjoyed the show. So, so
I
there's that.
always get sick to my stomach when I watch those, and it's almost like, even though I most certainly know some of those methods and some of those tricks, I never even purchased, and it doesn't bother me in any way. But it's just the fact that, what if I had gone out and spent that ungodly amount of money on those illusions? Those things are not cheap.
No,
And on this subject that you brought up here, it's like purchasing a magic trick from a magic shop. They give you a suggested pattern, they give you a suggested outline of what to do. I've always taken it upon myself to do my own presentation. Do not copy the pattern word for word. I mean, maybe the first couple of times while you're working it out in front of the mirror, okay, but it's got to eventually resonate and evolve from you in order to grow in your show. And that's just what I've learned out of that through the years. And what
yeah.
do you
When,
think?
when you're talking about an illusion, you're talking about thousands of dollars. So it's a lot of investment.
Yeah, I mean, the zigzag itself, I know when I was growing up and going to the magic shop for the first time, I saw one of those in the corner, and I looked at the price tag and I walked away really quick because I was mowing lawns to get money to buy tricks, and it was going to be a lot of lawns to get one of those babies.
You know, an interesting point. It's kind of a side point here, but when I was acquiring my illusions back when I was putting together the show for the first time, there was a builder by the name of George Kimmery of Chalet Magic. Denny used to say to him, "You're selling your props way too cheap, George. You should raise your price." He was the best builder I've ever known, and his work was the highest quality, and yet it was affordable to the average magician. When I say affordable, I don't remember exactly what I paid for the zigzag, but I think it was around the $2,000 or $3,000 mark. Whereas if you go out now to buy that same illusion, you're in the $6,000 to $10,000 mark. And George was building the best prop around. I still have his crate style sub trunk. I had another builder recently build me a steamer style because the steamer fits my personality a little bit better. But I have George Kimmery's crate. Now, if you recall, Doug Henning used the crate style in his show. And that thing will be around long after I'm gone. It is so well made that you could drop it off of a truck and it would work just fine. So George was a master builder, and unfortunately, his material is collectible now. So you go on the used illusion websites, and George Kimmery's stuff is way up in price over where it was when it was brand new.
Vintage
Because,
antiques.
yeah, everybody
Yeah.
wants George Kimmery props now.
Wow, that's incredible. But you're right. Everything is too true to what you're saying there. Um, so also on one of your episodes, you brought up Bill Bixby, and I've always had a love, and I vaguely remember the concept of the magician, but I do remember as a kid seeing the likes of Richard Ross doing his beautiful ring routine. And I don't know. I mean, the concept of the show was so wonderful. of course, it had two different identities. They tried to make it an action show, and then they said, let's just put magicians in here and call it what it is. And I looked forward to those. I don't know how many episodes they did of the magician, but I would love to hear your take on Bill Bixby. Was he actually somebody who appreciated magic?
Oh yeah, he's well known as a person who appreciated magic, and he did a number of. You remember the magic shows that would come on sometimes Wednesday night at 8 o'clock prime time, and there was a variety show. Well, he emceed a lot of those.
I think that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, I think he had a great passion for magic. Something about that's very personal for me, and life kind of works this way. When I was researching that to put that together, by the way, that was a request as well. A subscriber said, would you please present something on Bill Bixby? So I was doing the research on that. And at the time, my PSA was going up and up and up. And finally, my primary care physician sent me to a urologist who said, well, we need to do a biopsy. If you know, if you've ever had a biopsy on your prostate, oh my God, I've had biopsies before. And I kind of put it in that class. I thought that's what was going to happen. I was severely incapacitated after that procedure. The reason I bring it up, Bill Bixby died of prostate cancer.
Yes.
And I was reading about that, and I remember my boss at the time saying to me, almost every man dies with prostate cancer, but no one dies of prostate cancer. I think generally that's true, but in many cases it's not. So it's not universally true. And when the PSA score goes up, you need to take a look and check it out. You need to do everything you can to prevent and to circumvent that as quickly as possible. It turned out I did not have prostate cancer. It's an enlarged prostate, but it's not cancerous.
Something other.
Yeah, but we're keeping an eye on it nevertheless. Anyway, that was all during the research I was doing for Bill Bixby. But back to your original question, I think Bill Bixby was a great lover of magic, and I don't want to put him necessarily in the same class as Steve Martin and Johnny Carson, because those guys really started in magic and moved to mainstream entertainment. But no, Bill had a great fondness for magicians.
We've lost so many wonderful entertainers to prostate cancer, even including I think Michael Landon was colon cancer, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I've never had it done myself, and I probably should. They keep telling me you're at the right age. You need to get that stuff checked. And
well, the PSA score is very easy to get. It's basically a blood test, I believe. So that's not a hard thing to do. But when the PSA score is consistently elevated, that's when, and I'm not a doctor, but that's when doctors will generally recommend a biopsy to see if there's any risk. And again, your viewers probably aren't interested in the details of the biopsy, but let me tell you, it is not. If you've had any other biopsies, it is nothing like that. It is extremely invasive, and it will lay you up for a while.
Oh, I don't recommend it.
No.
So very quickly before we move on, had you ever met Bill Bixby?
No, I never met Bill Bixby.
How about Mark Wilson?
No, I
never attended a lecture.
I take that back. Mark Wilson was appearing at a magic convention in Pennsylvania along with the Pendragons. And of course, Mark was, I say I never met him in that I never spent personal time one-on-one with him, but I was with him at that convention. I met him at that convention. I interacted with him at that convention, but to say that we were friends or that we That's not true. I met him at that convention for that brief moment, and he was brilliant on the stage as well. I remember he did the spot card trick, and he did an egg bag, and he did those kinds of stand-up things. And then Jonathan came out with Charlotte and did the masterful illusion presentation that he used to do. And so it was a fantastic convention to be at. The two guys sharing the stage together were just wonderful. That was, I think it was in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, but I'm not exactly sure. That was in probably, I'm thinking that was 1993.
Wow. When I saw Mark Wilson, I met him at the Hocus Pocus lecture in Central California. And I want to say it was 2006. And he was already really up there in age. And even though he was present, he had somebody else pretty much doing the tricks at that point. And it kind of broke my heart to see that. But I fondly look back at that man, and I will never forget him. God rest his soul. He was an amazing guy and made an incredible impression on a lot of young people from my generation and yours as well. The Pendragons, another wonder, when they were still married when I saw them at the California Dinner Theater, and their elaborate act that they did at that time was just amazing. The Subtrunk, they ended with that, of course. And I don't care how many times I've watched that trick. When you see the Pendragons do it and they're lightning fast, amazing breakneck speed, I was quite surprised when I heard that they were divorced and no longer a thing. I was like, what? Wow. But Jonathan and Charlotte, very, very, very wonderful people. Glad I had an opportunity.
What a great team. What a great team they were.
So my next question would be Daryl. Had you ever met Daryl?
I did. When I was a part of the Society of American Magicians Assembly 6, we would sponsor lectures, and we sponsored a Daryl lecture. So we did get to meet Daryl. We got to interact with him on a very personal level, spend a lot of time with him because we were sponsoring his lecture locally.
Yeah.
So it was very good. You know, Daryl, one of the things that I think, I'm not sure if it's Penguin Magic or who's doing it, but they're putting out individual pieces that he put together. And you get this very nicely packaged gimmicked cards in some cases, or ropes or something like that, along with video instruction that includes Daryl's presentation, but then sort of a reinterpretation from one of the Penguin staff, whoever that might be. I've really enjoyed those pieces. I really have, even though I own most of them already, because if you have a large collection of Daryl material, you know, he did Fooler Duelers, and he did the Encyclopedia of Rope Magic or something like that, and cards. So he's done all of his materials out there, but so much of it is dependent upon gimmicks of some sort. I mean, yes. For example, the what I call the jumping knot of Pakistan. Nobody calls it that anymore. It's called something else now. Or the cross thought, where he's got, it's basically a cards across, but based on the Princess Card Trick principle. So all that stuff kind of depends on special gimmicks, but it's all out there again. It's all being remarketed. And so it's, because you can watch the Daryl material, you can watch the lectures and so on, and he refers to these things, but trying to make them up yourself is very arduous. So it's good that they're putting it all out there again.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I attended one of his lectures as well. I want to say that was in San Jose, which is kind of odd because didn't he live in San Jose?
I think so.
Okay, so he didn't really have to go too far. He probably left his house on the hill. But when I had heard of his passing, me and my friend Sean Durham, also a professional magician from this area with me. We just couldn't get over it. It was like we had spent a little bit of time with him after the lecture, and he just seemed so fun and outgoing and just witty as heck. And I just didn't see that coming,
No, no.
especially at the
There's
Magic Castle. I mean,
there's a classic story, and I wish I knew who wrote it or who. I think Robin Williams. It's been ascribed to Robin Williams or some others, but it's a story about a man who's going to a psychologist for help, and he's very depressed, and he's having a difficult time managing his life. And the psychologist says, well, to make you happier, just to give you a different perspective on life, you should go down the street and take a look at this clown that's performing at the theater down the street. He's just wonderful, and he will give you so much joy in living when you watch his performance. And the guy seeking counsel says, well, that's me. So and you've got people like Robin Williams, Daryl, the list goes on and on and on. That it sometimes is hard to see the currents beneath the surface. It might look perfectly still on the surface, but underneath there could be riptides.
yes.
So yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Animan, right? The great mentalist that was, in some respects, the great wave that drives mentalism to the shore. Animan also suffered from some sort of mental distress, and he actually committed suicide as well. So magic is replete with individuals that have not fared well.
Well, I always seem to. Lately, I have been kind of fading in and out because of the whole COVID thing. And, I went through a time in my life where I was really getting depressed. I stopped doing videos. I couldn't focus on it long enough. And I was a wreck for a while. And I want to say, if it wasn't for my faith in Jesus Christ and my knowledge and experience in magic, that I kind of stood outside of myself and said, man, what are you doing? You shouldn't even be following any of this stuff that you're hearing, because this is kabuki theater. And I don't think it's a secret to very many people, especially magicians. We tend to see through a lot of things, and people call us crazy because we're used to smoke and mirrors. And when something doesn't add up, usually a magician is the first one to go. And I believe that that's due to the experience, and to, if you deal with reality and you deal with the fantasies that we create, you still know the difference between fantasy and reality, and you try to blend them both together into your act so that fantasy looks like reality. And when reality doesn't work, I would say this whole entire situation that our world is going through right now is just, it's a stinky perfume. So knowing what we know at this point, I'm going to go into moving into this next question. And that is, I'm not sure if I asked it to you on the last podcast, but I do want to say it now. Where do you see magic going in the next 10 years?
I wish I had a crystal ball and could actually see where magic is going in the next 10 years. I like to think, and I'm not sure this is a projection, but I like to think that we're in store for a revival. Let me tell you a little story about that. So I'm downtown Baltimore at a hotel. I'm with the Pose Magic Theater group downtown. This is Friday night, and I'm talking to one of the magicians down there, And we're right across the street from the convention center. And this particular magician says to me, you know, many nights when I'm performing down here, I can look out and I can see the convention center. And even though we're in pandemic times, there's a line around the block, people trying to get into the convention center to see whatever entertainer is in there. And I just wish that there would be a line around the block waiting to see a magician. And what a wonderful wish and what a wonderful vision, and what he wants to do, and the vision of Poe's magic is to revive magic, to bring magic back to Baltimore City. And I think that's a great vision. But what we need to do as magicians, and magicians have always done this throughout the history of our art, magicians have found a way to be relevant, to speak to the generation of the time. And I think when a magician does that, that is the definition of Doug Henning. Doug Henning succeeded because even though, and I can tell you, Doug Henning was told by his mentors, cut your hair and wear a tuxedo. That's what he was told. Had he listened to his mentors, we would still be wallowing in a magic environment that is dying. Doug Henning changed the definition of magic, and in so doing, brought magic to a whole new generation. Now, I don't think, now you can look at David Blaine and you can look at Chris Angel, and they all have their audience, but I don't think they have near the success that Doug Henning did.
I agree with you.
Doug Henning brought magic to the masses, and people responded to it. But look at the period. It was the 70s, and he's very much a product of the time. And he didn't do it. If you look at his material was classic. He did the zigzag, he did the subtrunk, he did the linking rings. His material was classic. It was the presentation that was different. The presentation spoke to people's hearts. Another thing that I think we miss about Doug Henning that I'd like to see rediscovered, Doug was a believer. See, magic is so full, and I'm getting a little bit on a soapbox now. Magic is so full of skeptics, so full of people that just want to expose somebody else. That what our culture is craving is a sense of wonder. That's what Doug Henning gave us, because he believed in it. He embraced it himself, and so he was able to communicate that. So I think magicians go down the wrong road when they embrace skepticism to the extent that they're bitter, and that bitterness comes across in their performance. I mean, we cannot help but instill in our audience the emotions that we ourselves are feeling. So if we have a positive sense of wonder and we feel great about our art, we cannot help but communicate that. Likewise, if we're skeptical, if we're bitter, we can't help but communicate that as well. So we really need a return to Doug Henning's approach, but also we need to ask the question, how are we relevant today? What are we doing that speaks? You know, one of the great stories in magic that I think I covered on the vlog, there was a woman by the name of Toft, I believe, in the late 1700s, who claimed that she gave birth to rabbits. And she was investigated by medical doctors. The first medical doctors that investigated declared that she had indeed given birth to rabbits. It was the magician, poking a little bit of fun at that story, who produced a rabbit on stage. And from that point on, it became associated with magicians. Now we look back, we don't even remember where that came from. But at the moment, it was highly relevant. The audience understood it. The audience got it. The performer was speaking to the audience where they are. And, you know, we talk about, you're a man of faith, I'm a man of faith. the church is asking the same question, because the church is losing membership, and the church is asking not how can we compromise our message, that's not it, but how can we present the message in a way that is receptive, that's easy to receive for the people we're trying to reach. And I think when we ask that kind of a question, we pursue that sort of answer, magic becomes more relevant, becomes is something that people can embrace. You just, I'm not saying that we should be people that we're not. We are who we are, but look at mainstream entertainers. Look at what makes them relevant, why people respond to them. Think about those types of things. Don Allen did a book. I got it here somewhere. In the back of the book, now Don Allen was Magic Ranch back in the 1950s, early 60s.
Yeah.
And he was one of the most successful close-up performers of all time. And in the back of this book, he outlined these are the things that audiences love. Another book is Magic and Showmanship by Henning Nelms, where these are the things that audiences appreciate. If you look at the golden age, they didn't present just magic. They had jugglers, they had singers, they had a wide variety. They understood giving their audiences a wide range of appeal.
Kind of like the circus.
Yes, yeah. So we really need to think about, if we're not succeeding, it's not our audience's fault, it's our fault. We need to figure out why we're not meeting the needs of our customers and find out how we can meet those needs better, and then we'll be back on track.
It's a very good point. I totally agree with you about the whole Doug Henning. He had that childlike wonder, and he had the look like he just couldn't believe how he was performing this trick in his hands. He would sucker you in. He would just grab you and just look.
I don't think he was acting. I think he found his magic wonderful, and that emotion came across that everybody responded to it, because magic is wonderful. It absolutely is wonderful. And I love doing the linking rings. I practice the linking rings every single day. And I got to tell you, when I'm doing this with a couple of rings and they slip apart, that's a moment of wonder for me, even though I'm doing it. It's just fantastic.
Incredible. So before we wrap this up, I wanted to turn the stage over to you, my friend, to discuss your books with us, because I know that it was a huge passion with you. And what could you tell us about what inspired you to do this, and what was your goal, and what is your goal?
Well, I have 3 books at this point. I want to share them with you. I remember the moment I decided I wanted to write. I was 8 years old. I was watching The Mysterious Island, the film version. And at the end of the movie, there was a credit. It said written by Jules Verne. And I said to my mother, what exactly does that mean? And she said, well, George Verne is the person who came up with the story that the movie's based on. And I thought, of all of the creative people that contribute to a film and to the success of a film, it seemed to me that the writer was the most creative and essential part of that equation, because the writer came up with the characters and the story that everything else flows out of. So I wanted to be an author. And I remember writing my first book. I must have been 16, 17 years old. I get this book finished, I got this manuscript, and I sent it off to Bantam Books because I thought that was the pinnacle of publishing. And I get back a postcard, and it basically said, we don't take manuscripts that are not submitted by agents. The postcard said, you got to have an agent. I'm 16 years old. I don't know what an agent is. So I just continue to write. I have a passion for it. It wasn't until 2006 that my first novel was published. That's The Mentor's Gift. And The Mentor's
Beautiful
Gift,
cover.
yeah, The Mentor's Gift is about she is a female magician by the name of Amy Alexander. And she's doing corporate work. And she aspires to be a Las Vegas magician. Back in the days when Las Vegas actually hired magicians, nowadays they kind of sublet their theater. They don't actually hire magicians; they sublet their theater. So the magician is really at risk of losing his or her shirt when they try to do a Vegas contract today, unless you're a David Copperfield or a larger name like that. But she along the line, she falls in love with a California winemaker. And over the course of the story, she has to make a decision about pursuing her career or spending time with this person that she's in love with. Now, you might say, well, why should she make a decision? Why not do both? But she's at a point where she's trying to decide which way her life's going to go. It's called The Mentor's Gift because she has a mentor, very much like a George Goebel, who's mentoring her in magic, but also in life. And but the real heart of the story, she's a somewhat bitter person. She's a victim of child abuse, and she has to forgive her mother, who was rather abusive. She has to forgive her mother in order to truly love someone else. So it's really at its heart, it's a story about forgiveness. So that was the first book I wrote. It was published in 2006.
Now, are those strictly in just in print, or do you have audio books yet?
I don't have audio, but I do have ebooks. So they're available in ebook form and also print.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yet. Yeah, not audio yet. The second one, this was 2017, called The Christmas Garden. And I really did this. If you've ever watched the Hallmark Christmas movie, it's very similar in plot and story to a Hallmark Christmas movie. The main character comes to Baltimore to work with her company is acquiring another company in Baltimore, and she's been put in charge of the acquisition. The woman who works at the company she's acquiring invites her home for Christmas dinner, and there she meets the woman's son, whom she falls in love with. But the reason I wrote the book, my aunt Eleanor Pfeiffer, has hosted Christmas Eve for the family since 1958, 1957. She still does it to this day. She's in her 90s. She still does it. And I wanted to capture all those traditions. And so I wrapped them all in this romantic story, put them in this book. And when I gave this book to my aunt during a Christmas Eve dinner, she read it over Christmas week and just loved it. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a successful book because my aunt loved it.
Have you sold many copies?
No, I have not sold many copies. It's a good book. It's a good book. I tell you, I just I'm doing a lot of writing, but my focus is magic. I'm not really promoting. Now, 2021. This is my first nonfiction. 2021. The Elements of Success, and I have a point to prove. So, because this is one of those books that encourages people to pursue their dream. I believe that I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I'm a person of faith. And I really believe that God puts a vision in our hearts. He puts a dream in our hearts. God's gift to us is the dream. Our gift back to God and to our fellow human beings is the living and the presentation of that dream, the manifestation of that dream. I think we all have an obligation to pursue what we were born to do. And so even though I'm 61 years old and still haven't lived that dream, I'm determined that I'm going to do that to demonstrate the principles in this book and to demonstrate to everyone else that you really can pursue your dream and you really can make it happen. So this book is a recipe for manifesting dreams and manifesting your goals.
So that's not just isolated to magic. That's like any dream that you have. The recipe to success is in that book.
Absolutely.
I would have to say I will definitely purchase all 3 of your books from you. I want them autographed. I would love for you to tell our audience how they can get a copy if they're interested. And
well, actually, I can send you these. I really can. But these books are available on Amazon. I have an Amazon author page. So if you go to Amazon and you put in my name, you should be able to bring up my author page. Where on my website, which is, I believe, themagicofdaviddellman.com, there's also, I'm in the process of consolidating websites, but I think Written by David is still out there. Writtenbydavid.com is my author site. I was, at one point, I was offering ghostwriting and editing and other writer services. And so I had this website, but the books are there on that website. I think there's a reference to them on the magicofdaviddellman.com, but my email address is david@daviddellman.com. Anybody can email me and we can talk about it. Yeah.
well, what do they generally run for, or do you not want to discuss the price?
No,
That's not a big deal. I mean, it's I understand confidentiality.
no, I don't. I'm not sure what they're going for right now.
So I would rather get my copies from you and
Yeah.
have them autographed. I'm sure there's no personal service to the Amazon besides that they'll deliver it to my door.
Right. No, I can get copies out to you.
That would be great. I would love to be able to have you back on the show and just be able to tell you how much I've enjoyed reading your books. And yeah, if you ever do an audio book, I will probably listen to it every day at work while I'm operating a forklift. And hopefully I can give up that forklift to bring back another magic hat and pick up my career where it left off in magic, because the child in me is definitely saying, stop trying to grow up, Peter Pan. And on that note, David, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you back on the show. And I feel that we had a much better flow this time around as the first time when I was a chicken with my head running around with my head cut
you were
off.
warm. You were very hot. You were in a very hot place, and
it was like 100 and something degrees in this room. Right now, I would have to say it is a comfortable 60 degrees, which it's getting there, but I still feel cool as a cucumber. And I wanted to say it was a breeze having you on, because all I had to do was sit in the captain's chair and you pretty much filled in all the blanks. And as Johnny Carson would say, I just needed a warm seat. And there you were, my friend. You did a fantastic job. And I loved our visit today.
thank you so much.
And I think you're an amazing person. And probably by the next time we talk, you'll probably have triple the amount of subscribers. And I think that you're growing daily. And I think that's important, whether it's as a student in life or a student in magic, just whatever we choose in life. I think that you have that wonderful growth about you, and you're so willing to help men grow, well, women too, but you're building them up spiritually in a wonderful way that puts magic in a very positive light. And congratulations to you on that, because I think you're onto something. You really are. You have a more comfortable presence than I would ever have doing what you do, and you are chosen. I
Thank
think
you so much.
no, thank you. God bless you, and I thank God for you, my friend. I think catching up with your videos is going to definitely be everything that I need to pursue my career again. And I thank you in advance for that. I thank God for that. And you're a good man, David. And I look forward to having you back on the show.
It's always fun. I appreciate it.
And thank you, sir. You have a blessed day.
You too.